Oh, hey everyone. This is Dean for Paranormal Pickers. Just getting ready for our next Paranormal Picker adventure. Come on, join me.
Oh, hey everyone. Oh, I got people coming up here. I got people going over here. Holy cow. Nope, nope, don't want to do that one. Sylvia,
Yes, I'm here.
can you hear
Romeo,
me?
Romeo,
Romeo,
report art Romeo.
Victoria, can you hear me?
No.
Ha,
No.
she's sassy today.
Hey,
I'll do one of these.
guess you put me in my place.
Yeah. Well, hey everyone. Welcome to
Okay.
Paranormal Pickers. We are having technical difficulties apparently, and Nick can't make it today. He is tending to family emergencies as always, but hopefully things get better. So I asked Victoria Mundae to join in as my co-host tonight,
Thank you for having
and
me.
and then our special guest of the evening is Sylvia Shults. So we
Hello,
like to go
hello.
around and hello. And we like to go around and at least give a little bit about what we do. Uh, well, what we did during the week. I know I went down to Missouri for a memorial service and saw my brother's grave down there. So that was fun, but it was hot. 105 heat index. You walk out, you
Oh
get
my.
stuck. Yeah,
We don't even have 105 heat index. It's just 105.
yeah, and there you go.
And
But
it's easy.
I did bring her 3 cases of New Glarus Spotted Cow beer. So I was bootlegging, and she has 3 cases down there, and she's using them as bargaining chips. She just got 20 pounds of tomatoes for $10 and 2 spotted cows. And I think
Wow.
Sylvia's having issues again. She's starting to freeze up there.
Well, I'm excited. Either a lot of people are bringing their trash cans in right this very moment, or it's thundering. I'm hoping it's thunder. So, so
You don't want people to take their garbage out?
no, it hasn't rained in so long. The yards are all they're not even brown. They're this dead straw color, and it's just
Yeah,
hot.
there goes Sylvia again.
Well, the course of true love never runs smooth, right?
Mhm, that's right.
So
Well, today's episode is called There she is.
Here I am.
There you are. Sounding good, looking good. The picture looks clear. All right, I
good.
think we're here.
Oh,
So
wonderful.
let me bring up my Facebook over here so I can see all the chats and stuff. So Sylvia, tell everyone what it is you do.
uh-oh.
Oh, she's frozen again. Apparently, she likes to freeze.
I am a nurse.
Uh,
She
we're
is
getting
a
fan. Sounded like nurse. Oh, there you go. She's moving.
I'm going to
This
just go into a better part of the house, I think.
Sylvia on the move.
So, yes,
this is cool. I've never seen a live action.
if you missed it before, yeah, don't see my pretty bookcases behind me. You see my messy house. So, I'm a paranormal reporter. I basically sit in dark, spooky places so that you don't have to. I go out and I find fun stories and I share them with people. So that's what I do.
Cool. Are you like a stringer, or do you write for a certain publication, or
No, I thank you.
or
very much.
yourself?
I'm kind of a lone wolf. No. I just go out and find fun stories. I'm very lucky. I've worked with several independent publishers, and they have been gracious enough to publish the collections of stories that I've written, and I'm just intensely lucky that people love reading ghost stories so much, and I love writing them. It's a perfect match.
Ooh, that sounds nice.
Definitely.
Yeah. And I've also got a podcast of paranormal stories called Lights Out. And I go out and go on investigations, explore places, and basically bring you along with me. And you get to experience the investigations well after they happen, but I kind of put you in my back pocket and take you along with. And
Or during. I've been on a couple of those.
yeah. So I just love sharing ghost stories. I love hearing them. I love exploring them. I love reading them. And I love writing them. And I'm very grateful that people have responded to that and that they enjoy the books that I put out.
Cool.
How many books do you have out?
This new one that went live last month is number 8. I decided to kind of shake things up a little bit. This, there we go. Grave Deeds and Dead Plots. There we go. It's like a mirror image. Okay, so Grave Deeds and Dead Plots is a collection of stories. I decided to expand things a little bit, and this is a book of true crime stories that have associated hauntings. And
Has that got the one that I know about?
Yes, you're in here.
Nice,
Yes,
nice.
this is one. And I came up with so many stories that I figured that the line between true crime and paranormal is vanishingly thin, because there are so many ghost stories that arise out of these situations. So I started collecting these stories, and pretty soon I think I have enough for like 5 volumes. So
Oh my gosh.
it's the first one in the series, which is exciting.
Wow.
Perfect. Awesome. And
Yeah.
then Victoria, you had, well, obviously, please talk about Toby and his condition.
Toby is in my closet right now. So I think that's a cat portal. My cat is gone. Because I was getting dressed and he goes, Mom! And he walks by. Where are you going, honey? So any minute now, I think he's going to appear.
Okay.
He's doing better. I almost lost him because I just moved. And apparently the cat got stressed, which I can't figure out why the cat got stressed, because, it's not like he packed or, had to hire the movers or do anything. He just sat there. But
You supervised.
You got something on
Very stressful
Facebook,
to supervise.
like a GoFundMe account or something like that?
the world's greatest cat needs medical help. So, I mean, just 1 week alone was over $5,000, and he was in the hospital 3 times.
Yeah.
In the last week and a half. So I just got him home.
I think they have pet insurance, don't they?
Yeah, my pet insurance paid $140.
Oh my gosh.
$5,000 bill. I was like, no, Toby. So.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
an expensive cat.
Well, my husband died, my daughter moved on, and this is all I have is a cat. And he's not my cat. And people keep going, oh, Toby's mom's here. And I tell them, I'm not Toby's mom, he's my life partner. So
There you go.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure Belle is my soulmate. Come here, Belle.
Exactly. Okay,
Yeah,
you're the only other person.
Cool, see?
Aww.
Aw. Hey, Belle.
Say hi to people. Say hello. This is Miss Belle.
Oh,
She's a
beautiful.
Belgian Malinois.
Here's a treat. It's
Yes, all right.
adorable.
Yeah.
And then we
Good
can't
girl.
we can't go further without talking about you grape stopping recently, Victoria.
Okay,
Stop
you're
being on
stalking
grapes?
social media.
No, you told us last time you were going to do that.
Oh, okay. Well, I did.
So how
It
fun was that?
was pretty damn fun. Let me just say. I've always wanted to do, and every time I try to get somebody to go with me, they're like, "You mean like on I Love Lucy?" I'm like, yes, exactly like that. So, there's where I live in the paranormal witness protection town that I'm in. I'm there's a nice little wine bar I found, and they're like, hey, we have grape stomping. You know, if you're a member, you buy like 3 bottles a year. So, oh, lightning! I just saw that. Yay! Buy 3 bottles a year, and you get a discount on everything else. And we have grape stomping. I'm like, oh my god! And so
fun.
They it was a very slow day because I went on Sunday. And so I asked the guy, I was like, okay, what do I do? And he goes, take your shoes off, come back here, you know, roll your jeans up, you know, and everything. I said, well, do I need to wash my feet or anything? And he's like, nah, we're making Merlot. I'm like, oh my God. I'm never drinking that again.
Note to self.
So, Sylvia, have you ever stomped on grapes before?
I have not. I make a great deal of wine, but I have never stomped the grapes myself. I have a sieve, like a triangular shaped sieve, and a wooden pestle. It belonged to my grandmother, and my grandmother did quite a lot of canning and freezing of stuff and making grape juice. And I inherited that from her, so it kind of makes me feel close to her every time I use it. And
now, something that I know, Sylvia actually made bread to bring out the Gettysburg. What was it called? I forget.
Oh, Sagamite.
Sagamite. She actually made Sagamite to bring there as like an offering to the Gettysburg.
Yeah, Sagamite is it's almost like hardtack, and it has about the same reputation as hardtack, but I liked it. My husband helped me get the consistency just right. I was making it and not getting it quite right, so he helped me with that. So yeah, it's something that was a uniquely Southern thing that the Confederate soldiers had, and it's, what is it? It is a mixture of cornmeal and brown sugar with a bit of oil to help it all hold together, and then you bake that so it kind of ends up in like little cakes, almost like hardtack. And
yeah, that's cool.
I think it's good. They'd like pound it up and put it into, put some water to it and make a gruel out of it.
Yeah. No, I like what you do when you go out there. You dress the part, you act the part, you play the part, and you bring offerings. I think it's awesome what you do.
Well, sure. I bring tobacco and I bring coffee, and it's been a minute since these guys have had coffee, so I
know Laura and I bring tobacco and whiskey.
Yeah, there you go. Whiskey, that's a good one.
We don't bring it back, but
yeah, I went to a cemetery out in the middle of the woods once, and that involves some honey whiskey as an offering.
There you go. Well, I can't start without the proper, without further ado, and my co-host, the Juliet to my Romeo, the Moore to my Swayze, the Chandler to my Lugosi, and the Faye to my Cog, Victoria Mundae.
Me? No, I thought you were talking about
you.
No, you're my co-host.
Just here. I just pop in every now and then.
And then, of course, we talk about tarot card in this lovers, obviously. And I used the Robin Wood tarot. And then this is the card. And I know you do tarot card. Do you read tarot cards, Sylvia?
I do not. I have had them read for me, but I am not skilled in that.
Well, obviously the lovers are love, respect, partnership, trust, and romance. I mean, the obvious.
All that good stuff.
Yeah. Did you have anything to add, Victoria, to the tarot card lovers?
I have no idea about lovers.
Well, when
oh, you mean the card? Oh,
yeah. Well,
no,
it's funny.
Partnership, like coupling is what it is.
So when I looked up this card online just to see what people thought about, they instantly pointed out something that was
yeah.
The butterflies.
It's art. It's
the butterflies, the painting itself, but a lot of people were commenting on his I don't know, I can't put my finger on it.
The drapes match the rug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I told Dean earlier, I was like, well, he's a blonde, so he looks real happy.
Yeah.
But they have the moon and the sun in their hands, so it's like, they're partners.
Mm-hmm.
Can't have one without the other.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So, with being lovers, you held up your new book. Congratulations on that, Sylvia.
Thank you very much.
And one of the stories we mentioned was about Mary Jane Reed and Stanley. That's going to be in there from
Yes.
Oregon, Illinois. And we could tie that in tonight because Stanley and Mary Jane Reed were, well, sadly, they were murdered. And Lover's Lane was a factor into this murder. I mean, the headlines, Lover Lanes. And we'll have Mike on later this month to talk about more about the Roadhouse, where the spot where Mary Jane Reed was last seen, and then we'll talk more about his prohibition stuff. But what's like one of the biggest stories in that book that could tie into Lovers, maybe other than this one?
Oh, well, tying into Lovers. Let's see. Well, I mean, there are a lot of big stories in the book. I mean, I actually did Villisca for this first volume, which I think every one of the books is going to have a big central thing. Like, I think the next one might have Lizzie Borden as one of the anchor stories, for lack of a better word. But we're talking about Lovers, so let's talk about Celia Rose. So once upon a time, in the 19th century, there was a girl named Celia Rose who lived in Pleasant Valley, Ohio. With a pretty name like Celia Rose, living in a place called Pleasant Valley, you might be picturing a dainty girl with porcelain skin and cascades of golden curls, a demure damsel whose greatest joy would be to sit and work on her embroidery. You would be wrong.
I like her already.
Yeah.
And she was a big, dumpy, ungainly farm girl. And in 1896, she kind of caught a crush on the neighbor boy. He was 17, she was 24 or something like that. And he would plow the fields with his shirt off. And she kind of developed a crush on him. And she was absolutely convinced that they were going to run off and get married. And when it didn't happen, she kind of got upset. Guy's father came to Celia's father, Mr. Rose, and said, "Look, your daughter keeps hanging around my place and bugging my son, and you need to put a stop to that." So Celia got a talking to.
How old were these
she
people?
was so upset about this talking to about her love that she poisoned her entire family to get them out of the way. She mixed arsenic into their cottage cheese. And
that's justified. I mean,
into the cottage cheese.
Yes.
I have seen these farmer boys on
her box. She knew that her family liked eating black pepper on their cottage cheese for breakfast, so she filled a pepper box with arsenic. Rough on rats. Yeah.
I'll have to, because I work at the hospital taking room service, and this guy is on a diet where cottage cheese wasn't available. And he was like, he's so mad that he didn't have cottage cheese. Now I'll have to tell him that story. So then,
cottage cheese.
You don't want the cottage cheese. You don't want the cottage cheese.
Look and say, you turn to page 40.
Yeah.
Right.
What happens?
But you're in the right place for it if it does happen.
Yeah.
There's always room for Jell-O. Yeah.
And watermelon just kind of seeps down and covers and it fills up all the cracks after a meal.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes.
So
you and I think alike.
Yeah.
Any Lover Leap stories? I know in Hannibal, Missouri. I don't know if you've ever been there, but there's a Lover's Leap there. You know those story about the Indian maiden who would rather leap off the bluff instead of marrying this warrior. She didn't fall in love with him. Mm-hmm. So that story goes on for all over the place. Anytime there's a Lover Leap there. But in Hannibal, it was actually documented story about the Millerites. I think I'm saying that right.
Ah,
The people were following William Miller, who was a Baptist preacher, and he prophesied the second coming of Christ. And he predicted the second coming of Christ to happen on October 22nd, 1844. Yep. I got someone's attention down there.
Wasn't born yet.
Yeah, October 22nd, 1844. So on that date, obviously nothing happened. And the Millerites, who followed this William Miller of Hannibal, abandoned their crops and stores. They put on long white robes and gathered at this lover's leap,
oh no.
only to be disappointed, obviously. No, they didn't jump. I didn't mean to scare you there.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking
was
too
that,
when I was reading it. I'm like, oh my God, don't drink the Kool-Aid, don't jump,
Yeah, the folks that thought they were going to be picked up by the spaceship
Yeah.
a few
No
years
problem.
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a, so I mean,
I was convinced that's where you were going with it.
I was convinced that's where that was reading until I was like, oh, they just, they were disappointed. Ah, shucks, Christ didn't come today,
It was leap year. I'm sorry.
Oh, good one. Good
Off the
one.
Well,
I'll have to pay you more next time, Victoria.
What's more
For
than
com-
nothing? No,
for
just kidding.
comedy writing. So what other lover stories do you have over there?
Oh.
Or any stories. You could tell any story, basically.
Oh. Okay. Well, Oh, there's something about America's first bank robber.
Oh.
Ooh.
We always think about in the mid 19th century, we always think about stagecoaches being held up, and we never really think about banks being robbed. I mean, that's kind of a gangsters of the 20s and 30s thing, is robbing banks, and John Dillinger and Public Enemy #1 and all that. But yeah, it had to start somewhere. And in 1863, there was a fellow named Edward Green who was the postmaster for the town of Malden, Massachusetts, near Boston. And he was having money troubles. He was the postmaster, but it didn't pay very well. And he was just steadily going into the red, and he needed some money. And he was like, hey, banks have money. So he bought a revolver and took it into the bank when he did his banking first and kind of got the lay of the land. And he realized that there was only one teller working that day, and it happened to be a 17-year-old kid named Frank Eugene Converse, who was the son of the bank president. And he had gotten a job as a teller. And Edward Green came back later that afternoon with his revolver and shot Frank Converse and killed him and robbed the bank, and then started paying off his debts. Yay. Yay for him for paying off his debts, but there was a 17-year-old kid dead. And Frank Converse's ghost haunts the library in Malden. The library was built due to a bequest by his parents. The Converse family was extremely wealthy, and they did a lot. Frank's father did a lot of civic engagement. He was responsible for building, oh gosh, there's a list here. Holy cats. It's
Holy cats.
yeah. Okay, so Alicia Converse, he gave money. He gave money to build Malden Hospital and the School of Nursing, Malden City Hall, Malden Historical Society, the Malden Home for Aged Persons and Day Nursery, Malden YMCA, Malden Public Library, which is the building that Frank haunts, and Malden Auditorium, which was one of the finest theaters in the Boston area at the time. He also donated over 100 acres of land for the public Pine Banks Park. And his wife, Mary, also donated a bunch of money to buy artwork. They were both very interested in fine art. And they gave money for the library to be founded, and they filled it with all sorts of lovely artworks, which I'm all about that. If anybody founds a public library, they're aces in my book. And, Frank decided to haunt the library. He's touched people and moved chairs around. So it's a very gentle haunting, but he's still there.
Now, why the library and not like where the bank was or something? Did he just happen to like books, do you think?
His parents gave the money for it. So I think he kind of feels a connection to it. Let's see. The bank still stands, and where is it? The office of the postmaster, the guy who did the shooting, is now a pub called Hugh O'Neill's. And
does he haunt it? The man who shot everybody or shot him?
No. There's no record of Frank Green haunting anybody.
Okay.
Do you plan on going out to these locations that you're writing about ever?
Oh, I'd love to.
Like the world tour of the book?
I would love to. I am planning a trip to England next late May or early June. So that'll be wonderful. I've got
you're going to come back with an accent?
It's only 2 weeks, so I doubt it.
You never know.
I'm going to see the Black Monk of Pontefract and the Cage and Edinburgh Kirkyard and Edinburgh Greyfriars Bobby and all sorts of fun stuff.
Wow.
I'll come back with lots of stories.
You could always take us with.
Well, I put you in my suitcase.
I got to lose a lot of weight then. Well, how big's your suitcase? Back in the day, they had those crates, those big chests that those hope chests, clear out one of those.
There you go, the old style traveling chests.
The steamer trunks.
Steamer trunks, that's what I was looking for.
We'll have to take a cruise over there, when those big...
Yeah. My mother's father worked for Armor meatpacking plants. He was an engineer, and he was posted to Buenos Aires, Argentina. So my mother grew up, she spent her grade school years in Argentina. And I'm looking at them both right now. I have 2 of the steamer trunks that they sent from New Orleans to Argentina, to Buenos Aires. And then when they came back, they hopped a ship in Argentina and went up along the southern coast and landed in San Francisco, I think, and then went overland from San Francisco to LaGrange, Illinois, to the house where I grew up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I have some of my mother's journals. So, and that's one of the ones I have is describing this trip from Buenos Aires to LaGrange, Illinois.
I was going to say, how do you get all that research? And there you are with a letter. That's awesome.
Some of it is primary sources. Yeah.
We just don't travel like that anymore. I think we should.
I know. Yeah.
We need more vacation time.
Laura Redmond says, I love Sylvia's stories.
It has been too long.
Right?
Yeah. But I know I'm going to see some people this weekend.
I know. You're coming up to Rockford for
yes, I am.
Our haunted Rockford Paracon.
Yes, I'll be speaking about Lizzie Borden.
Oh, nice.
Doing my Lizzie Borden talk.
Yep, it's August 20th at the Veterans Hall in Rockford from 10 to 5:30, something like that. Yeah. And then we're going to go to Tinker Swiss afterwards, and that's where
we are.
Rosehead Soup is going to be doing their public investigation there. But, yeah, we got Sylvia, Dale Kazmarik's going to talk, Chad Lewis.
Yeah. Chad Lewis recently came to my library several weeks ago.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, he did a talk. And it blew my mind because I was talking with him before the talk. I did not sit in on the talk because I was like on the desk. I was working at the time. Yeah. But he told me with a straight face that he had started off that morning. He had done a talk to school children, I believe, or children at a camp or something in northern Wisconsin that morning. And then he had driven, I assumed he drove, drove from northern Wisconsin all the way down to Peoria, Illinois.
Wow.
I have to catch up with him this weekend and say, dude,
Yeah.
how much coffee did you drink? How much caffeine did you need on that road trip? And were there any other stops besides northern Wisconsin and us?
Yeah, I'll have to talk to. We've been trying to message and get a date for him to be on this show, but I'll have to, now face to face. I'll have to like force his hand to ink and sign on it. Sign here, man. I love listening to him. Well, the way he talks, I think he does do like Red Bull and coffee or something like that. It's hilarious. But speaking of Peoria, let's see if I can share my screen here, because that's, I believe, the first time I met you.
Yes.
And where's the picture?
My beloved
there you go.
Peoria State Hospital.
And then I did a raffle where I won your. It should come up.
Look at how
I won.
short my hair is.
I know. Well, look at how young I am.
Wow.
But yeah, you had the Bartonville Asylum.
Look how short your hair is.
Yeah. Mark stole this book from me, so Mark, I need my book back, please. And then I never used. Huh?
Is that the one I saw at the lab with all the notes in it?
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yep. I think that's what he took it too. And then I got the 2 tickets for investigation, which I never used. I never used them.
Did you? You didn't use them? I'm sure.
No, I don't even know. I think I still got them.
I'm sure they will honor them.
You think?
I'll be your inside connection.
There you go. Oh, I showed the picture. Yeah, I can show the picture too.
Yeah.
Well, since I'm playing slideshows here, I got a picture of Lover's Lane.
Ooh, yeah. Let's see that.
Lover's Lane.
Ooh.
All the people up there with white robes.
It's a very picturesque spot.
Yeah. I'm surprised you never have been to Hannibal. Hannibal's got a great ghost tour through there, and then
I've heard of it. I would love to go on the Hannibal
It's cool.
ghost tour.
And then they also did a steampunk fest out there we went to.
Really?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was cool.
You don't think of Hannibal, Missouri as having a big steampunk population.
I was surprised, and it was fun going down there.
Cool.
Yeah, if you look at the banner on our Ghost Head Soup page, you see us standing in like one of those old phone booths. Laura, Mike, Melissa, and I, we all first got our picture there. That was down there during the time.
Fun.
You guys have so much fun.
You try.
One day.
So this is the Legend of Lovers Leap.
Ooh. Ooh. One otter skin for a murder. Jeez. Oh, not worth living. Oh.
The two embrace and threw themselves off of the top of Lover's Leap to their deaths. Well,
what are all the marks on the bottom of the monument there?
Written by J. Hurley and Roberta Haggood.
That's kind of sad, you know. It's very Romeo and Juliet.
Very.
And then we mentioned the Oregon, Illinois. I got a picture of that too, just so it shows lovers. Lover's Lane victim, Mary Jane Reed, 17 years old.
What a pretty picture.
Unsolved murder.
Yeah.
But I know who did it. but we can't do nothing about it anyway.
Yeah, well,
Who did it?
enough time passes, then yeah, you know you get.
I can't say it online because people get
Text me. You've got my number.
tune in, and when Mike Arians is on, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, you'll have to tune in for that.
Yeah. He was. I think we're going to try to do it at the Roadhouse itself.
Oh, fun! That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that show was actually on. What's that show called? Dead Serious? Is that the one with Amy Allen? Amy?
Oh, cool.
That's right. Is that the show name? Dead Serious? No. What's the psychic guy, one? What the hell is it called? We're
I don't watch a lot of TV.
I don't watch any TV.
What's the name of that show?
Which one?
Laura, help me out. What's the name of that show they were on? That's something. The girl, Amy, is the
Dead Files.
Dead Files. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
I
Oh
don't
my
watch
god.
TV.
Oh
So-
my god. Yeah, they were on an episode of Dead Files. I think it was called. Like I'm gonna remember the name of the show.
Oh, it was called.
Yeah, no. I'll post it on YouTube.
Yeah.
Oh man. So, Victoria, do you have any stories about lovers down there in Texas?
You mean personally? No.
Well,
No.
haunted, paranormal wise.
Oh, yeah. There was one when I lived, because I did the ghost tours on Old Town Spring, or in Old Town Spring. And there were two people who were very popular because it was a very small town. Alina Winchie and her soon-to-be husband, Edward
Lay down.
something. I can't remember his name. It starts with an S. Anyway, they
you
were
got
walking.
the sometimers as I got sometimers.
Yeah. Edward. And they were both from very rich families, and so they were walking home one night, and Edward was like, an Eagle Scout guy. He was very upstanding, always did the right thing, and he stumbled upon a bootlegging operation that was actually in progress. And so the next night they were jumped. They think it was like a hit, and so he was, slit his throat. And so his fiance Alina was running across which is all of 3 streets, and she was shot in the back. And so, a lot of times we saw her ghost, just hanging out there where she actually died. And I did see Edwards one time because I thought it was a very large raccoon, it being Texas, they're the size of cows pretty much, and I was like, wow, what the heck is that down there? And then it disappeared, and they're going, oh no, that's where Edward died. So,
Oh wow.
Oh wow.
yeah.
So what were the names again?
Her name is Alina Winchie, and his name Edward Stone. That's it, Edward
Hey.
Stone. I was gonna say Edward Snow, but it's still unsolved, and it's from like 1903. So I went out to
Okay.
Alina. That's what we do. Like the day after Halloween, we go out to old cemeteries and clean them up and put flowers down and talk to people. Because just because they're dead doesn't mean you don't talk to them. So I went out to Alina's grave and I put my hand on the headstone, and I was with some friends. I'm like, oh my God, who's Frank? Because I don't know who Frank is. And my friend that I was with, she goes, well, that's Alina's uncle. And I said, oh, well, Frank killed her because she just told me, Frank killed me. And she goes, well, that's who they always suspected, but there's never been any proof.
Oh wow.
Oh.
Look
Wow.
at Sylvia taking notes. She's
Yeah, I am.
Story's going to be in the 6th book.
Yeah. So
So where in Texas was this?
it's a little town called.
Notes.
It's only fair because I got your bread recipe. It's a little town just north of the airport. It's called Old Town Spring, and it's like a little refurbished touristy spot where there's little cafes and
Okay.
shops and stuff like that. But everything closes at dark, because there's all these
The fear of giant raccoons.
no no
Nocturnal things.
I was out there all the time.
Well, Victoria, thank you for the story.
Wow, there's so many of them. I mean, there's huge shadow people out there. I'd see them all the time, and the nasty shadow people that were out there, and we would see mist and fog. Oh, and there's the whole thing with the little kids. I mean, oh my God, the little kids that run around out there, because there was an orphanage that burnt down. And they didn't keep records, so a lot of the children were unidentified. So they put them kind of in little graves. They were unmarked.
Sad.
Well, it gets worse because the graves.
Worse than dead orphans. Great.
Yeah. Well, I found the little church. I was with some friends, and it's a dirt road that only one car can go down. And then there's a cemetery right on the other side of the church. And so we were walking out there, and all of a sudden we would sink down, like walk, sink. I'm like, what is going on? And then we started noticing that there were like little flower borders that were rectangular. I'm like, oh, the kids. And, because there would be some other headstones. And so we were out there, and the kids were talking, and there's a lot of crazy things that happened out there. But one of the stories is in Old Town Spring, because it's just literally on the other side of the road. You hear the kids out there, and I've heard them so many times, about 2 o'clock in the morning, 2 or 3 in the morning. You hear like little kids running and laughing and playing, and you're like, who the hell's got children out here at 2 And then you look around and you realize I'm the only car here, and I'm the only one out here. So you clearly hear those kids laughing and playing. And I think that's kind of comforting, knowing even, they had this horrible, tragic ending. They're still playing,
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
But there's a subdivision on the other side of the church that has a lot of paranormal activity. Like just little pranky things,
Nice.
Clothing. So
now, are you a sensitive? Do you see the spirits, or
seeing here? Yeah.
Oh, that would.
Driving is fun.
I meet people who can do that, who have that gift, and I say, "Oh, that would be so awesome!" And everyone's like, "Oh, you don't want that ability." I'm like, "No, that would be so amazing to know that there's something else out there and to be able to communicate."
Driving is really scary because a lot of times you do the flinchy thing because you think something's coming at you. But so.
I've never been told that, but I can see that. Yeah. Gosh.
We have Diane Hilbert from Rhode Island checking in, saying hello.
Hello, Diane.
Hello, Diane.
So Victoria also does tarot card reading, so maybe later on she'll do a tarot card reading for you.
Cool.
That's why I said later, so you can have time to prepare. So I brought up the picture regarding or where we first met, Sylvia, in Bartonville. So of course that's one of your faves.
Oh, yes.
Rhoda Bear. And I know there was a love story there too.
There wasn't. Shall I tell Rhoda's story? Do we have enough time?
Oh, we got plenty of time.
Okay, cool. So the story of Rhoda Derry is one of the great tragedies of mental health care in Illinois, and it's one of the great success stories of the Peoria State Hospital. Rhoda was born in 1834. She grew up in southern Illinois in Adams County. And when she was 16 years old, she did the most natural thing in the world. She fell in love. She fell in love with the son of a neighboring farm family. She herself came from a farm family. She was she was the youngest of 9 children. Maybe a little bit spoiled, we don't know, but anyway,
youngest child. Let me say.
Yes, youngest daughter, youngest child of 9 children.
Spoiled.
We don't know how far Charles and Rhoda's relationship went, but we do know that after they'd been courting for about 2 years, Charles asked Rhoda to marry him, and she said yes. Now, there was one person who was really not very happy with this relationship that was going on, and that was Charles's mother, Nancy Phoenix. I mentioned that Rhoda was the youngest of 9 children, and the Derrys were dirt poor. In all of the census records, her father is shown as working other people's land. They didn't even have land to call their own. On the other hand, the Phoenixes were very well off. They had land, and Charles was the older son of only 4 children, so he stood to inherit his father Frederick's land when Frederick passed on. And Nancy Phoenix was not about to have her baby boy Charles marry one of these dirt poor dairies. So she confronted Rhoda in the street, and she said, either you release my son from this engagement or I will curse you. Now, talking about witchcraft in front of Rhoda Dairy was a really good way to get her attention very quickly, because her grandmother, Moll Dairy, was known as the fortune teller of the Revolution. She had emigrated with her husband, Valentine, and they had both fought in the Revolutionary War. And they had actually switched sides. He was a Hessian soldier and had been conscripted by the British. When they got here, they switched sides, and Moll fought alongside her husband for the American side. And when the war was over, they settled in Pennsylvania, and Moll became a practitioner of Pennsylvania Dutch hex magic. So she had a reputation for counties around as being able to lay and cast curses. So talking about witchcraft in front of Moll Dairy's granddaughter, Rhoda, really would have gotten her attention very quickly. A couple weeks after this confrontation in the street with Nancy Phoenix, Rhoda had some sort of break with consensual reality. She swore that invisible witches were after her. Her mother, Rachel, was about the only person who even tried to understand what was going on with Rhoda, trying to understand what was going on in her mind. But Rachel's techniques were not the best. Rhoda would cower in their cabin, saying that invisible witches were swooping down on her. And Rachel took to keeping a loaded pistol in her apron pocket. And when Rhoda would have her spells screaming about invisible witches, Rachel would whip out this pistol and start firing it around the cabin. Not sure how helpful that is with somebody suffering from mental illness. And the heartbreaking part about all this part of the story is that Nancy knew what Rhoda was going through. These are small towns. She heard that Rhoda was having issues. So she went to the dairy cabin and tried to get in to talk to Rhoda to say, you're fine. There is no curse. I was kidding. I just wanted you away from my son. And Rhoda refused to see her, and the dairies refused to have anything to do with her, and I don't blame them a bit. The Phoenixes moved somewhere out west, and they just dropped out of the historical record completely. I've never been able to find any of the Phoenixes. So
Maybe
Rhoda
they were cursed.
What's that?
Maybe they got cursed.
It's possible. Karma.
They jumped off a lover's leap or something.
So
I'm kidding.
Rhoda's parents put her in the Jacksonville State Hospital for 2 years. Rhoda was a very violent patient. She was locked in her room every night. And every morning, the guards, the attendants would find her wandering the grounds of the asylum, of the state hospital. And they would always say, who let you out? You were locked in your room. Who let you out? And her answer was always the same. Nancy Phoenix let me out. And that's something we've never been able to explain about Rhoda's story. I have my own theory, but it's never been fully explained.
Oh, what's your theory?
My theory is that Rhoda's feelings about losing Charles were so strong that she created a tulpa. Oh. She created a thought form that took the form of Nancy Phoenix. Wow. And let her out of her locked room every night so she could go searching for Charles. Oh. So she was released after 2 years as being incurable. Her parents cared for her at home as long as they could. But in 1860, her mother, Rachel, died, and her father could no longer care for her at home. Rhoda was still very violent, so Jacob Dairy did the only thing that he felt he could do. He had her committed to the Adams County Almshouse. Now, almshouses in the middle of the 19th century had the potential to be truly awful places. If you had $25 for a license and an empty barn in your backyard, you could open up your own almshouse, because people of that era did not think that the mentally ill could feel cold or heat or hunger or pain. In some cases, they were treated no better than animals. The Adams County Almshouse was not that bad. It was a county-run almshouse, so it had board oversight. It was sited on a really nice piece of land, rolling hills. There was a stream running through the grounds. But the sad fact is that a poorhouse or an almshouse or a county farm is someplace where if you're down on your luck, you can go and get 3 hots and a cot. They were not prepared to deal with the mentally ill, but poor people go crazy too. So poor people ended up in this poor farm, and they were suffering from mental illness, and there wasn't any treatment for them. And the people who ran the poor farm were absolutely unprepared to deal with someone with Rhoda's depth of crazy. She was still very violent. She had been abandoned by her family. Her fiance was who knows where. She thought she was cursed. Her mother was dead. Her father had dropped her off at this almshouse. She started acting out. She would lunge at passersby and try to grab the buttons off of their shirt or their dress. She developed a condition called pica, which is a compulsion to eat inappropriate objects. She would pick buttons off people's blouses and try to eat them. She would crawl around on the floor, and anything she found on the floor, a pin, a penny, a nail, would go straight into her mouth. If they gave her a piece of fried chicken for dinner, it would get crammed into her mouth, bones and all. So for her own protection and for the protection of the other inmates of the poor farm, the superintendent of the almshouse decided to put Rhoda into something called a Utica crib. Now, Utica cribs were standard issue in mental health facilities at the time, but they were never designed for use any longer than overnight. People outside the asylums said, oh, being locked in a crib, that's absolutely horrible. There were patients who actually wanted to be in a Utica crib. There was a reporter that was doing a big expose in Utica, New York, where these cribs were designed. And he talked to a patient, and the patient said, I sleepwalk. And, oh, hey, thanks. He said, I sleepwalk. And if a nurse locks me into a Utica crib overnight, I know where I'm going to wake up, and that's a big comfort to me. And Utica crib, you can see on the screen right there, it looks like a baby's crib, but it has a lid that's also barred, and that locks. Rhoda was put into one of these Utica cribs, and she was left there for weeks and months at a time. They didn't know what else to do with her. Usually a Utica crib was lined with a thin mattress, a hospital mattress. Rhoda's was not. Rhoda's was lined with straw. And there was a strategically cut hole in the bottom of it and a tray underneath that hole, just like a rabbit cage, and for the exact same reason. She was not let out except on very few occasions. When she was let out, she was cared for by other feeble-minded patients. Her hips atrophied so that when she was let out, she was no longer able to stand and walk on her own. Sometime during the first 10 years of this treatment, Rhoda decided that she no longer wanted to watch the world go by through the bars of a cage, and she clawed her own eyes out.
Oh, God.
She beat on her face in her distress. She beat on her face so much that her front teeth fell out. It's possible that when she put one of the nails into her mouth, when she was free to crawl around, that she developed gangrene on her tongue. She was no longer able to speak. She spent decades in this situation. Now, in 1902, Dr. Zeller became the superintendent of the Peoria State Hospital. And his immediate mandate was that he wanted to help everyone. He decided that there was no one that was beyond help. He realized that he was put on this good green earth to help as many people as he could. So how do you prove that? How do you prove that no one is beyond help? Well, you go to the almshouses and the poor houses and the poor farms of the state, and you cherry pick the worst, most abused, most wretched cases. And that's exactly what Dr. Zeller did. He went to all the almshouses in Illinois, and he went to the Adams County Almshouse, and that's where he saw Rhoda. And he took one look at her. She was, by this time, she had been moved to from a Utica crib to a box bed. And she still would tear her clothes off. She couldn't stand the thought of fabric on her body. She was covered with a thin canvas sheet. That's all she would tolerate. So Dr. Zeller took one look at Rhoda Derry, and he said, this patient is coming with me. And the superintendent of the almshouse didn't want to let Rhoda go because he figured that the almshouse was going to be blamed for her condition. And Dr. Zeller said, either this patient comes with me or I shut your institution down effective immediately. And he had the power to do that. So, September 26, 1906, the train between Quincy and Bartonville got in very late that night. There was a washout on the tracks. There was a train coming that the patients were being transported in boxcars. There were about 60 patients being transported from Adams County to Bartonville. So it wasn't until about 1:30 in the morning that the nurses and the attendants got the call that the train had actually arrived. So they went to the station to meet it, and the train chugged to a stop, and the attendants opened up the doors of the boxcars, and they escorted the patients out onto the platform. And two of the attendants went onto one of the boxcars, and they wanted to make sure no one had been left behind. And they saw a great big wicker laundry basket at one end of the boxcar. Now, this was not usual. Usually the patients only arrived with the clothes on their back. But they saw this big laundry basket, and they said, yeah, maybe it's patient clothing, who knows? Well, we probably ought to take it off the boxcar. So one attendant on each end of this wicker basket, they hump it off the boxcar, and they set it down none too gently on the platform. And it's then that the lid of the laundry basket opens and the clothes part, and there sits Rhoda Derry. She was being transported in the laundry basket because her hips had atrophied so much that she could not sit in a wheelchair for any length of time at all. So she was being carried around in the laundry basket. That night, for the first time in 44 years, Rhoda Derry slept in a bed with clean white sheets. The nurses at the asylum knew her excruciating history, and they made sure that Rhoda Derry never wanted for anything as long as she lived, as long as she was with us at the asylum. They took her out into the gardens. She could no longer see, of course, but they made sure that she experienced the hilltop in any way that was left to her. She could feel the sun on her face, and she could hear the birds, and she could smell the flowers whose colors she could no longer see. They took her to dances, and she loved listening to the music. She would kind of dance to the music as well as she was able to. She could still hear. She had every sense left to her except the sense of sight. And it was said that Rhoda never smiled at the asylum, except when Dr. Zeller came into the room. I don't know if she heard his voice, recognized his voice, recognized the smell of his cologne. I don't know. But you've seen the pictures of Rhoda that Dean has put up on the screen. That's the only picture of Rhoda that we have in the asylum, but she's beaming. I just have to think that Dr. Zeller was standing in that room when that picture was taken. And that picture was taken in Dining Hall A, actually, which still stands as one of the 12 remaining buildings of the asylum that still exists. Rhoda was with us for about 2 years. She came to us September 26, 1904, I'm sorry. And on October 9th, 1906, she passed away. She probably developed tuberculosis in the almshouse, but in the summer of 1906, her case became full-blown. So she was moved from her cottage to Dining Hall A, which was pressed into service as a tuberculosis ward. And that is where she passed away the day before she would have turned 72.
Wow.
72, yeah, she survived. She went through 44 years of unimaginable hell, and she survived enough to be rescued by Dr. Zeller. So Rhoda Derry is one of the most, I would say she is the most beloved spirit on the hilltop. We just love our Rhoda.
So how do you encounter her there? I mean, do you just have like an essence of her, or?
Well, that's a very interesting question. She loved that hilltop so much that you can experience her anywhere on the hilltop, but especially near her grave. She was buried on the hilltop. She was buried in Cemetery 1, which was usually reserved for the patients whose families had money. This is very interesting. There were 2 cemeteries right from the beginning of the asylum's history, Cemeteries 1 and 2. One was for the patients whose families had money and could afford to bury them. Cemetery 2 was the paupers' graves. By the time she passed away, Rhoda had only one living relative left, a brother, who never visited. Her family didn't have money. So why is she in number 1? And I just can't help but think that that Dr. Zeller and all the nurses loved her so much and were so devoted to her that they made sure that she was laid to rest in Cemetery 1.
Mm-hmm.
So the way she presents, the way she manifests, is that during life, Rhoda developed the habit of chewing tobacco when she was a teenager. And even when she was at the Peoria State Hospital, if she knew that you had a piece of chewing tobacco in your pocket, she would kind of crab across the floor and tug on your pants leg and beg for some chaw. So if you're anywhere on the hilltop, especially by her grave, and you feel a tugging on your pants leg and you smell chewing tobacco, that's your sign that Rhoda is there. And it's very, very interesting. I myself am not gifted. I do not see spirits. I don't usually hear spirits. I have on occasion, but it's not a regular thing by any means. But I have had people that can see spirits tell me about Rhoda. After I wrote Rhoda's book, 44 Years in Darkness, I went to her grave to tell her about it, and I had a medium with me that said she just threw her arms around you and gave you a big hug, which was wonderful. And several years ago, there were a couple of groups. There were like 3 groups that banded together for a multi-day ghost hunt at the asylum, at the Pollock Hospital. And I told Rhoda's story several times over Friday night. And one of the mediums, Lisa, heard this story a couple times, and she was so distraught over it because I told her about Rhoda's spirit tugging on your pants leg and the smell of chewing tobacco. And all day Saturday, they're supposed to come back on Saturday night. All day Saturday, she just spent stewing over this. She said, this is so unfair. I mean, she spent most of her life, 2/3 of her life, locked in a cage. And now in the afterlife, she's still reduced to crawling around on the floor. How is this even fair? So she and the rest of the group came back to the Pollock Hospital on Saturday night. And she was waiting for everything to get started Saturday evening. And she became aware that there was somebody next to her in the Pollock hallway. And she looked down and she realized that this person sitting on the floor next to her was Rhoda Derry. And Rhoda looked up at Lisa, made eye contact, and stood and went, as if to say, look, on the other side, I'm whole. I can stand. But the reason she presents that way, the reason she manifests that way and crawls across the floor is that she wants you to know without the shadow of a doubt that that's her. Mm-hmm. She knows her ghost lore. And she realizes that if she tugs on someone's pants leg, they will know that is Rhoda Derry.
I got to find these 2 free tickets.
Send me one.
Yeah.
An airplane ticket.
And an airplane ticket.
Yeah. I volunteered to be your native guide.
Oh, that's
there you go.
I love listening to you. And Dean, I just had a great idea for if you do a Halloween show, let's just sit around and tell ghost stories all night.
Heck yeah. I am all about the ghost stories.
There's no
As
such
a matter
thing
of fact, now that you bring that up, okay, so my previous book number 7, lucky number 7, was called Days of the Dead, A Year of True Ghost Stories.
Ooh.
It took me 2 years to research and 14 months to write, but I found 366 ghost stories. One for every single day of the year, including Leap Day, I'm proud to say.
Mm-hmm.
And
Lover's Leap.
I wasn't going to say that.
There might be a Lover's Leap. There's a story from Southern Illinois that involves, it's something about a death that reverberated through the ages that came back to haunt the people like a generation later. So yeah, there is something very similar to that.
That would be, that's an interesting...
In the Edo period in Japan, samurai warriors would play the game of 100 candles. And this was a test of bravery. And they would sit in a room with 100 candles lit, and they would tell ghost stories. And with the end of each ghost story, they would blow out a candle, and a spirit would appear. And so at the end of this test of bravery, you're sitting there in the dark, smelling burnt candle wax, and you're surrounded by 100 spirits that have been summoned by the telling of these stories. I've always wanted to do that.
Oh, that's fun.
Isn't that great?
Ghost stories.
Yeah.
Well, so you got 366 of them anyway.
I wanted to do that. I haven't nobody's taken me up on this yet, but I wanted to do that as like a fundraiser for the Peoria State Hospital, and then COVID hit. But I thought that would be so cool if people wanted to, contribute to buy tickets or whatever and do this game of 100 candles.
Yeah.
I'll sit around and tell ghost stories and blow out the candles one by one. That would be so awesome.
That would. Or do a page-a-day calendar, if you have 365.
I have put out calendars for the past 2 years, and I'm thinking of doing another one. So every month has a ghost story from Days of the Dead.
Nice.
Yeah.
So as far as your ghost hunting skills, do you use technology or recorder? I know you use a recorder.
Yeah.
But do you use ghost hunting? Do you ghost hunt per se as far as telling the story itself?
I do. I love trying to communicate as best I can with whatever spirits I'm hunting, for lack of a better word. I'm not above using technology. I think technology is fascinating. I would love to have all the fun toys and whatnot. I
The
can't.
bells and whistles that blink and go.
Bells and whistles, yeah.
The geo
Flare
cubes and
cameras.
stuff they got out now.
Yeah, geoports,
Yeah.
all sorts of stuff. I love my flashlight. I love my recorder. I've caught some really interesting EVPs over my. Oh, you see a dog nose in the camera there. I've caught some really interesting EVPs over the course of,
That's funny.
of the years that I've been doing this, and that's EVPs are my favorite. Hey, buddy. Hi, sweetie.
That's
Oh,
how the
you're
hospital.
beautiful. Look at that satiny fur. Oh, you're so pretty. Goodness. Okay, sorry. Done. done drooling over the cat. So yeah, I really love capturing EVPs. I think they're fascinating. Photographs, I'm not as good at. I know people who are very good at capturing ghost photographs. I am not one of those people. I am kind of handicapped, I think, by the fact that I'm not as sensitive as I would like to be. My sister, who is 3 years younger than me, is very sensitive, and she hates it. She absolutely, she's terrified of it. She sees what I do as going and playing ding dong ditch, and she's afraid of what's going to come out. She's like, why do you go in search of this stuff? And I'm like, because it's fascinating, because it's history. It's history coming alive. And she has the gift, and she is not happy with it. There was one time she was telling me that she lives out in Las Vegas now, and she was on vacation somewhere in, I want to say it was one of the missions in Southern California, I think. And there was a church, a mission church, and a graveyard outside the church. And right outside the church, there was kind of a walled off area that they had done. They had recreated an Indian village with the wigwams and the huts and everything, and the adobe huts. And she went into, she stood at the doorway of one of these huts, and she wanted to go inside, but she told me there was someone already in there. And I understood what she meant. She's
The
like,
Indian maiden and the warrior who jumped off to over sleep.
and I'm like, that's fine, that's cool, you do you, but I would have been in there like a flash talking to the guy, but or whoever it was that was in there. But yeah, I look at it, I've always been fascinated with history. I really believe that you can't understand the ghost stories and the ghost lore of a place without knowing the history behind it, because that's why we have these ghost stories, is because of the history, the people that lived these stories. So so that's what I look at. That's how I look at ghost hunting, is a chance to touch history, a chance to maybe talk with someone who lived through these historical events, like Gettysburg. God, I love Gettysburg.
Place was
I
crazy.
know it was a horrible, horrible thing, but my goodness, just wow.
Gettysburg.
Gettysburg.
I've always wanted to go there one day.
Yes.
That's
yes.
cool.
Yeah, that's one of the things we do. I don't want to say we have a tagline, but I guess my tagline is giving voices to the voiceless, or giving voices to those who don't have a voice anymore.
That's so awesome.
So, we prattle off stories. I'm like, that's just what I'm hearing, and then I start to find out they're actually kind of accurate. So.
That is so cool. That is just beyond cool. Yeah.
Everybody can do it.
My tagline is, I sit in dark, spooky places so you don't have to. But giving voice to the voiceless, that is amazing. That is.
Yeah.
I need a tagline now.
Tagline or walk on music. Yeah.
Well, I like to go. The things that I've been doing recently is going to these places and leaving a gift and validating that person's existence.
That was so wonderful.
And then, like, I gave a picture of a little girl's tear. I donated that to the Monroe House in Hartford City.
Oh, wow.
And I bought this wood carved bear that represented the bear totem of Ida out in Randolph County. I left that in her room.
Oh, cool.
And then in the abandoned, what is it called? Lake Shawnee Abandoned Amusement Park.
Yeah, I've always wanted to go there.
I had this little garden angel with broken wings, and you leave an offering there. So I had her there, and it was funny because I would take her behind this building where this little girl was supposed to have been killed, and I was going to put it there, but I'm like, I was starting to walk away, and I'm like, it doesn't feel right. You know, it's kind of like tarot when you read tarot. If it doesn't feel right, it's not right. So I went back and I grabbed the statue, and I have it on camera. I'm like following her around. I'm like, okay, show me where you need to be. And we get to this picnic table, and I put her right down there in the middle, and I'm like, that's it. And ironically, the next day they had this film crew out there doing a TV show for like the most haunted places in America.
Mm-hmm.
And the opening scene, Laura was watching it actually. She goes, "Oh my God, your angel's on TV!" So they panned up and got a shot of her with the Ferris wheel behind her. And I'm like,
nice.
I just love that there. So that was kind of cool. So, Shay, somebody showed me where to put her. So you got to go with your instincts all the time. So,
that's fabulous.
Yeah, that was cool.
Ooh.
Big lightning. Yeah, I have a friend of mine wrote a book on mass murders, and I was like, why would you write a book on mass murders? He's like, no, you're misunderstanding. It's not.
Ooh, thunder, nice.
I know, I got so excited. I hadn't read it. As you were telling that the lightning was going.
Ooh, got a storm going on.
Sound effects. Love it.
Yes, we'll just go on. He said it's not to glorify the mass murders because he's a psychic medium. He talks to the people who are murdered and he gets their story out also. I'm like, okay, I can get behind that.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. I mean, yeah, of course, it's always the true crime, the serial killers, you know, it's always the focus is on them, not the victim and so stuff. So that's cool.
He redirects to the victims. I'm like, okay, I like that.
And that's kind of the same thing what I was talking about, like Randolph County Asylum or whatever you call it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the draw, but there's people there, you know, there's spirits that were there, and that's what you got to remember. And Sylvia, you did a great job with Rhoda. I mean, basically, you think of her before you think of Martinville, you know? It's like the way you tell the story. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, definitely.
I was sucked in.
Oh, yeah.
Good.
I've heard this many times, and I'm still on the edge of my seat going, yeah. You know, and you saw me react sometimes, too. I'm like, oh, God, that's right.
I love telling that story. It's exciting to me every single time. And I've told it hundreds of times. But I love it. I love it.
Have you ever dive deep into that, where any stories that kind of relate to what Mrs. Phoenix did to do the curse that disrupt this person's life for the rest of her life, and to only try to apologize? Have you ever came across another story of similar things like that?
God, I wish I could. I would pick up on it right away because I'm so familiar with Rhoda and Nancy and Charles. I
think it would be uncommon, but I wouldn't think, or I would think there might be other cases out there like that where you put the fear of God in somebody and their brain just snaps, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very powerful thing, the power of suggestion.
Yeah. At a young age.
I'm just about to, I recently had a field trip to one of our local libraries. I work at the Fond du Lac Library, and I made a field trip to the Dunlap Library, and we got a tour of the library, and I happened to see Michael Klein's book, Witchcraft in Illinois. So I had to check it out, and I'm about to start reading it.
Yeah. So. That was mentioned on the other show, too.
Cool.
I'll have to get Michael Klein on here now.
Yes, you will.
So, yeah, Laura.
Oh, nice.
Laura brought this up. Yeah, so Nellie, down in Marcells, Illinois, we went down there a couple years after our investigation of the house. Cool. After more research, and we went out there and planted hyacinths, I believe they were. I don't know. Yeah. On each side of the grave.
Hyacinths are good.
So are those the purple ones?
Yeah,
I think
those are
those-
hyacinths. I love those. They smell so good. I have been to the graves at Villisca several times, and I always leave them something. I'm
Oh, Vicky's
getting a
gone.
reputation.
She
Oh,
was
no, I-
frozen. I wonder if it's the storm.
I wonder. Yeah, I wonder if it is the storm.
But we got some. So again, Diane Hilbert, Nick.
Cool.
I always butcher his name. Sorry, Nick. Kuselis. That's right, Kuselis. He's going to be on the show coming up.
Yay!
So here's Laura Shane.
Yeah, I always yes, wonderful. Well, I have gotten a bit of a reputation on the other side. I am told for when I go to children's graves, I always leave a piece of candy.
Oh, cool.
And I was at a cemetery, Casey Cemetery outside of Louisville, Kentucky, and left some candy for them. And because there are a lot of children's grave in that particular cemetery, I'll be doing a lights out episode on that pretty soon here. But I have a friend who's a psychic medium and who does regular ghost box sessions and just listens to whatever comes through. And she got the question, are you the one who put candy on my grave? Are you the one who puts candy on the kids' graves? And she's like, no, that would be my friend Sylvia.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I've got a reputation for that. And I always bring gifts when I go to Villisca. And
why wouldn't you? I mean, that place to be.
And I always bring Rhoda flowers on her birthday.
There you go. Yeah, about the axe murder house. I mean, it says, well, it's an axe murder house. I mean, that's you're screaming, this is what we're doing, but yet it's not. I mean, would they put up a sign, family murdered here, please come in and visit? You know,
that's the draw. Blood sells.
I know. It's just
if it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah, you know, some things could be left alone, I guess.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing. I don't claim any sensitivity, but I think the longer that I do this, the longer I go to these places, the more sensitive I get. I am not to the point where I'm seeing spirits yet, but I can walk into a room and I can kind of feel the energy in a room sometimes. And when I was at Villisca the first time, I wandered around the house by myself for the first 45 minutes. And for the rest of the evening, it just, I knew what had happened there. I knew these horrible eight murders that had taken place. But for the evening beforehand, the evening I was there, it just felt like a place where 4 children were being raised with love. It was the home of a loving family.
Yeah.
And I spent the night there and I slept perfectly fine, was not bothered by anybody or anything. Then the next morning I was given the task of closing the house up and locking the door behind me. And there was another picture that I wanted to take. So I went upstairs with my camera and took the picture that I wanted to take. And something about that house in the morning hours felt very unsettled to me. I felt on edge. And I was going down the rickety, narrow stairs, and I have a good imagination. And my brain said, these first responders would have carried the children down from upstairs, but the adults that were upstairs, they would have had to, like firemen, carry them down these stairs. And I was so squicked out by that mental image that I just hurried down the stairs. I couldn't get out of that house fast enough.
Wow.
And it was just a completely different feeling than it was the night before. And I talked to the caretaker. I talked to Johnny Hauser, the caretaker, and I told him about this experience. And he said, I've had the exact same thing happen to me. He's like, you'll be in the house and just all of a sudden you'll start freaking out and you'll have to leave the house. And 15 minutes later, you're like, what was I so scared of?
Yeah.
So that the atmosphere of the house changes. It's interesting.
Yeah, and then that's a good point where you say, now I lost my thought about the tragedy itself creates the haunt and the draw, but the family, visiting the family prior to the tragedy is more rewarding than anything.
It
Pretty-
really
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
So that's the side that I like to see. So thanks for putting that mental thing in my head, because that's something that I needed, because I never want to go there, because it's just like, why would I go there to hunt people that were murdered, and especially children?
Right. Yeah. Well, the thing is, even if they got murdered, I mean, the fact that they were murdered gives them their notoriety. But the fact that they had lives before that murder
Yeah.
is what is the draw for me. I mean,
Yeah.
every
myself,
single one of
yeah.
these murder victims were people, just like me and you.
Mhm.
Hopefully, we won't be murdered in our sleep, but But no, that's the important thing to remember about ghost hunting in general, is that these were all living, breathing, thinking, feeling human beings at one point in time.
Exactly. I'm trying.
Yeah.
Victoria, I
Yeah.
bet the lights went out because she goes, sorry, I'm in
Yeah,
the dark.
I need to plug in my laptop. My battery is getting very, very low.
Well, we're down to the wire here. We got 2
Oh, okay.
minutes
Well,
left of the
that's,
show.
that's what I tried to point out in the opening pages, in the introduction to 44
Yeah.
Years in Darkness, the book about Rhoda Derry. I mean, if she hadn't thought that she was cursed, she would have married Charles. She would have had a perfectly ordinary life. She would have had children, maybe. She
Yeah.
would have been a photograph, a sepia tone photograph. She and Charles would have been a sepia tone photograph in a photograph album with those little paper corners, the little square corners. And her great granddaughter would have seen her picture and said, "Oh, wow, look, Grandma Rhoda was so pretty." But
Yeah.
that's not what happened. Her life took an entirely different turn, and that's why we know about her. She could have been completely anonymous except to her own descendants,
Wow.
but that's not the way her life turned out. And now she is known by many, many, many people, many more people than she would have if her life had been ordinary.
And I don't have psychic abilities either, but I have an intuition, and I have this feeling that things are set my way.
Yeah,
You get these messages and stuff, and
yeah, like
with
that
your
2 o'clock tree.
exactly,
There we go.
yeah, stuff like that. And here, let me bring Victoria on real quick. I think she's doing it from her phone now.
I am on the guitar.
Did you get struck by lightning?
I might have to switch to my phone. My phone's got more battery right now than my laptop does. We'll see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes. We're
Did you see me
Keep
almost,
an
go?
eye on the battery.
Oh no.
yeah. But I was going to tell Sylvia that to me, doing a lot of research and historical research, and what you just said about family and what Rhoda could have went through and what she didn't, and if she did go through this, she would have just been something like this. But I clear out storage lockers,
Mm.
and some of the stuff that I have to throw away, I mean, it like irks me. And some of the stuff I grab, I basically grab the stuff that I know I could sell at the flea market,
There you
But
go.
there's
No shame in
there's bins of, kids awards that they won during school, and
Aw.
photographs and all these old pictures and stuff. And what do I do with these stuff? And it's just like, it's heartbreaking at times.
Yeah.
But you also learn something about these people too. And
Yeah,
normally
That's
with
important. Yeah.
well, now it's a little tricky, because one is why they're not paying their storage locker is either they just died and their
Yeah.
credit card shuts down after 3 months. So you see this happening. Their family forgets about it, so then they'd stop paying on it
Or doesn't know in the first place.
and doesn't know in the first place. Yeah. So I've
Nice.
discovered a lot of different stories about these people that lived there. There was a guy that was had a shootout with cops. I had another guy that I found a letter that was postmarked but never opened about a mom telling somebody, I don't know who, but a female in this guy's life, how she wished her own son was dead. So these I'm reading stories that nobody even knows about. These people that are not even, it's mind-boggling sometimes, the stuff that I find. And just like to your point with Rhoda, it's like, if Rhoda didn't go through this, nobody would have known about her.
Yeah. I have been working at my library for 25 years this month.
Mm-hmm.
And we moved buildings about 8 years ago or so. But in the old building, there was a gentleman who would come in, and he was an elderly guy. He has since passed on, and he would come in to read the paper, and every once in a while he would come up to the circulation desk, which is where I work, which I've been working circulation for 20 odd years, and he would say, "Can I say something? Can I tell you something?" I was like, "Sure, whatever." I didn't even really know his name, just enough to see his obituary in the paper. And he would say something trenchant about the state of politics in the world at that point in time, whatever. This is like 15 years ago. But I saw his obituary, and turns out he was a concert pianist.
Oh.
And no one of us ever knew. He was just some weird random guy who came into the library every once in a while, every couple of weeks. But yeah, he was this brilliant concert pianist. So you just never know about people.
I had a strange story in Aurora, Illinois library. I went there to research the murders that took place out there and the old fire station. And I was doing a lot of research out there. And, sometimes you think, oh, you're the person that's delivering the story. You're the one, whatever. Find out those clues and everything. And then there was this lady sitting there, older woman, and she had all these home keeping magazines or something. I'm talking probably a stack of 300. So it's like she's been there for 300 years going through this.
Uh-huh.
And I walked by her, and she said something to me. And she goes, "You're not the one." And I'm like, and it was just because I was just thinking that way as I was researching about, am I the one that discovers this? And then she comes by and she goes, "You're not the one." And I was like, oh. And then so I went around the corner to another room, and then I came back just to make sure that she was really there.
I don't blame you a bit.
She was. But yeah, that was kind of awkward. That's all she said to me. Nothing else. "You're not the one."
Well, who was? Did you ask?
No. It was weird. Yeah.
Man.
That's wild.
Victoria just pulled a card.
The
It's
lovers.
the lovers.
Oh, the
Yes.
lovers. Yeah.
I have a Celtic deck that I really like.
There you go. Well, at least they're wearing clothes.
Not the belt.
Yeah, that card's not NSFW.
Yeah. And then Laura's calling out that's maybe the pianist was Freddie from up in Monroe, Wisconsin. We have a ghost spirit that plays guitar. Not guitar. What am I saying? Piano. And yeah, we would get, because he taught piano in his house there, and every time we asked for him an EVP, he goes, he did the piano.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's funny because I'm from Houston, and the Houston Public Library, the original building, which is now like, special archives rooms and all that kind of stuff, had a janitor that used to live there, and he lived downstairs. I think he had a cat or something that lived with him, but he would play the violin, or maybe it was a dog. Anyway, and he would play the violin every night, and he, lived there in the basement for years and years and years. And when he passed, they started hearing the violin music late at night.
Oh,
But they won't let anybody.
Nice.
Well, my phone just told me I have no internet. So thank you for that.
it's still on there. No, your phone
I'd love
just.
to investigate a library.
Yeah,
There you go.
so they won't let anyone investigate in there, but people have who worked late or been there doing special work or projects or something. They hear violin music.
Oh, fun. That is awesome.
Well, I know you're running out of battery, Sylvia, over there, and Victoria.
Yeah,
Who knows
afraid
what's going to
so.
happen? You're going to get rain all night. It's going to,
It's
hopefully no floods
flooding.
for you. Yeah.
No, it was 102 today, and it's going to be 80.
We could
tomorrow.
use some rain here. Send some to Illinois.
It's
Which part?
Middle.
no,
Middle.
My garden could use the rain.
There you
yeah,
go.
my trees have all died. I'm
Oh.
like, well, yeah. When I moved in, I asked the landlady. I'm like, so what's the landscaping expectations of me because everything's dead. She's like, just leave it.
Well, coming up, we got the August 20th Illinois Paranormal Conference with Haunted
Yes.
Rockford. Check that out. You got Sylvia Shults' website. You can go and buy all her books up
Mhm.
and pre-order all the future ones.
Yeah, and check out Lights Out.
And Lights Out, definitely. Got new episodes coming. How often do you put those out?
Whenever I can. I'm job. And I write books. I'm
When they're
really-
done.
Yes, the most recent one I did was a few weeks ago. I did one on Pennhurst, and the next one is going to be.
Wait, you went to Pennhurst?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, duh. We were there, duh.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah,
It's by mind.
that's okay. That's okay.
I
so
got that
we're
one I got to listen to because Pennhurst, to me, I can't finish that story because it messed with my obelisk. Remember in the tunnel there?
Yeah.
And I don't know. And just that whole place is just like a mecca of, I don't know. There's
It
something.
was
There's something.
weird.
High Street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
So I'm
place.
hoping to put another Lights Out episode out in the next couple of weeks.
Cool.
It's going to be exploring an abandoned cemetery in the middle of the Illinois woods. I can't tell you exactly where it is, but it's fun. We got loads of EVPs.
Oh, nice.
How is it an
Yeah.
abandoned cemetery?
Really, really
Yep.
actively.
Good point.
How does one abandon a cemetery?
Well,
No, I'm being
no longer in use. It's in the middle of the woods. It's really hard to get to.
And then forgotten cemeteries, maybe.
There you go. That's a
Forgotten. I forgot.
better way to say it. A forgotten cemetery. And there haven't been any. I think the most recent burial was mid-1960s. I made a note of it, but it was a while ago.
I think my dad used to drive around and point at the cemetery. Or no, it was my friend Ken, my best friend Ken from back in the day. He would drive. People are dying to get in there.
That's why they have a fence up.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was this is something I had not thought of before, but I was one of the things I do at the library is process the books, and there was I'm nosy, so I read all the author bios at the end of the books and everything. And one of the books I processed today, the author bio said it was a horror story about ghosts. The author bio said that the author got the idea for this story when she was picking up rocks or arranging rocks in her family cemetery and realized that she was kneeling on her own grave. Right? It took me a second. I'm like,
Whoa.
oh, wow. Yeah, that.
My mom used to. Okay, I still have no internet. My mom used to say whenever she'd get like a shiver down her spine, she's, "Oh, someone's walking on my grave."
Yeah,
Have y'all heard that?
yeah.
Yep.
I've heard that, but yeah, when you're working in your own family cemetery, and that's someplace you're going to lie someday, and yeah, that I never thought of it that way, but yeah, you could be kneeling on your own grave.
If you were to write your epitaph, what would it say?
Dog nose.
In here. No.
Don't step on me. Well,
I don't
Victoria
know
throws it
what
again.
my epitaph would be. No
Got the
idea.
I'm still here.
Oh, your picture's frozen.
It's frozen now. I had to wait for a little bit. You didn't see.
Yeah.
You're smirking.
Usually I am.
It's a nice smile.
Yeah.
Okay, it is kind of a smirk.
So you got lights out, you got the books, you got the. There you go. That's better. I'm looking at her for.
Oh, that's nice. That's much better.
Anything
But
else that we
can you
missed,
make
Sylvia? That you
I
got
don't
coming up?
think so. Books, podcast, talks, if you're in the area.
Well,
Come
thank
see
you so much for
Yeah.
being our special guest today.
Oh,
Always nice.
absolutely. Dean, it was my pleasure. And Victoria, it was wonderful to meet you.
Oh, it's so nice to meet you.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
Thanks.
And
Yeah. And thanks, Victoria, for rescuing Nick, because I would have killed him.
No, well, that'd be good for a haunted podcast or something. You could do that. Sorry about the storm in the internet and the lights.
No, I think
Yeah.
it's apropos or whatever.
yes, it was very atmospheric.
When I put this on YouTube, when you disappear, I'm going to have a lightning bolt shooting you down.
I was gonna say spectrum on the side. Like, where's my internet?
There you go. So we got to get Laura back on. So yeah, I guess we could probably sit here and tell 366 ghost stories, right? All night long.
I don't know, we're up to about a dozen so far. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks again. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to end broadcast. You can stay on if you like, Sylvia and Victoria. Chit-chat afterwards. But thank you for watching Paranormal Pickers. See you next week, hopefully.
Bye, everybody.
Oh, hey. Wow. Oh, hey, everyone. It's Dean from Paranormal Pickers. Oh, I got the preview for the next episode. Oh, yeah. Here, take a peek.